Okay, I need to be honest with you guys. This Boston Marathon stuff is like really stressing me out, and like I can't even look at anything. I have no comments. I just have a lot of anxiety whenever I see one of these posts, because like I just know how much work people are putting in to qualify for Boston, and I just can't. And it's not a hill I can die on, because I just don't feel like there's a lot I can do. But the hill that I can die on is the glutes. Like, I just see so much misinformation and just so much like almost like I don't want to say fear mongering, but I just see so many times, especially with my in-person clients, like their doctors just like gaslighting them, like, you just have weak glutes, like that's all it is, like just work your glutes. And while that's maybe fair advice, like how we're going to work them, if we actually do need to work them to be able to get rid of our hip pain, like that is something that is just not like a blanket statement answer for everyone. So I want to go over that. So let's just go over a quick example here. So let's say someone has impingement. So maybe they have an overgrowth of this hip, and every time they're going into like a squat, this ball is like ramming into the socket, and then we're getting irritation here. So their doctor's like, you have weak glutes, work your glutes. Or maybe they're going to PT and they're like, do these exercises. So they get these exercises where they have the band, and then they're like kicking their leg back like this, or they have the band around their knees and they're doing the monster walks. Okay, great. So I'm having momentary recruitment into extension. So my hip is turning on, turning off, turning on, turning off. Or I'm walking sideways and I'm getting like a little bit of activation of like my glute med, which is here. And like, yeah, that's working to like turn the hip on, turn it off, maybe get it working for like a decent duration of time. But then once I go back into like a deep squat, like my hip is still running into the rim of my pelvis. So like, what did that do? So maybe what I see when I see this person is that every time they're going into that deep squat, yes, they're getting like impingement here, but also potentially maybe their pelvis is shifted forward. So they're a little bit more like, this is exaggerated, like this. And then when they drop in, their hip isn't able to slide as far back. So then this hip is relatively forward and it's kind of running into the rim of that joint. So instead of that ball being able to roll back into the socket, maybe it's being shoved and it's hitting the front of the socket more so than if they were able to rotate it back. So maybe that person, I'm putting like a chair behind them and I'm cueing them to stay nice and even through both feet, and then maybe de-rotate that hip a little and then reach really, really far back with that right side specifically. And then maybe they're able to clear that socket a little bit more, and they're getting increased glute recruitment because they're able to get more of a stretch into the glute as they're dropping. Let's say I give them that really like deep loaded squat and they're actually able to sit all the way down and they're clearing that hip, and then they're not getting that pinching. Well, two things, like we took away the pinching and then we're also getting an increased recruitment of that glute, and we're not just like standing around doing monster walks hoping for the day of hip pain to resolve. So I just wanted to go over like how cool it is when you have really specific exercise paired with kind of like your body and what's meant for you, and like these, like some of these blanket exercises are fine, but it's also just like a squat is like very common, but it's like the way that you could potentially be cued into a squat that's best for you can just yield amazing results. So I did a whole podcast on this and like kind of how I look at glute training specifically for hips. Feel free to listen. I think it's awesome. Let me know what you think.